The transport shuttle touched down on the detention station with a soft hiss. Hana Kim gathered her supplies and stepped through the airlock. The station smelled like recycled air and something else. Fear, maybe, or sadness. She had learned to recognize that smell in her years doing relief work. A security officer met her at the entrance. His uniform was crisp and his face was blank. "You are the human relief worker," he said. It was not a question. "Yes, Hana Kim. I am here to check on the juveniles." The officer nodded once. "Follow me. Do not touch anything. Do not approach the cells without permission. Do not give the prisoners anything without approval." Hana followed him through the gray corridors. The station was military. Everything was metal and cold. Her footsteps echoed. They walked for several minutes before reaching a heavy door. The officer pressed his hand against a panel and the door opened. Inside was a long hallway lined with cells. Each cell had thick bars made of some kind of energy field. She could see small shapes huddled in the corners of each cell. Cubs, children, 47 of them according to her briefing documents. "You have 30 minutes, the officer said. Then he left. Hana walked slowly down the corridor. In the first cell, 6 cubs pressed themselves against the far wall. They were small. Their fur was matted and dirty. Their eyes were wide with terror. She stopped walking and knelt down slowly. She did not try to speak. She just sat there, letting them see her. The cubs did not move. They barely breathed. After 5 minutes, Hana stood up carefully and moved to the next cell. 5 cubs here. Same terror. Same defensive posture. She repeated the process. Kneel, wait, stand, move. By the time she reached the last cell, her 30 minutes were gone. The security officer returned and escorted her out. She said nothing during the walk back. Her mind was full of what she had seen. That night in her small quarters, Hana could not sleep. The cubs were being held in conditions meant for adult prisoners. No toys, no comfort items, no education, just gray walls and fear. She sat up and began writing her first report. The next morning she returned. Same procedure, same security officer. This time she brought a small meal with her. Simple food. She walked to the first cell and sat down outside the bars. She opened her container and began eating slowly. The cubs watched her with suspicious eyes. She ate half her meal. Then she set the container down within reach of the bars and walked away. When she looked back from the end of the corridor, the container was empty. This became her routine. Every day she came. Every day she brought food. Every day she sat outside different cells and ate first, showing the food was safe. After 3 days, she noticed the cubs no longer pressed themselves against the far walls. They sat closer to the bars, watching her. On the 4th day, the smallest cub approached the bars while Hana was eating. The cub was female, barely more than a baby. Her fur was thin and her eyes were too large for her small face. Hana looked at her from the corner of her eye but did not turn her head. She continued eating slowly. The small cub reached one tiny hand through the bars. Hana took a piece of fruit from her container and placed it in the cub's palm. The small fingers closed around it. The cub pulled her hand back and ate quickly as if someone might take the food away. When she finished, she looked at Hana directly for the first time. "Thank you," the cub whispered in broken standard language. "You are welcome," Hana said softly. "What is your name?" "Kira." "Hello, Kira. My name is Hana." Over the next 2 weeks, more cubs began to approach. Hana learned their names. She learned that they had been taken from a refugee transport. Their families had been fleeing the war zone when the ship was intercepted. The adults were sent to one facility. The cubs were sent here. They did not know if their parents were alive. Hana brought more than food now. She brought basic medical supplies with permission from the diplomatic mission. She treated small injuries through the bars. She brought cloths so they could wash. She brought simple games that could be played in the cells. The cubs began to talk more. The older ones told her about their homes. The younger ones asked her questions about humans. Why did she come every day? Why did she care about them? They were the enemy, were they not? "You are children," Hana said simply. "That is all that matters." One of the older cubs, a male named Reth, asked her why humans were different. "The Kralthex officers do not see us as children. They see us as future soldiers. Why do humans see something else?" Hana thought about this. Maybe because we remember being children ourselves. We remember being scared. We remember needing someone to be kind to us. I think humans believe that all children deserve protection, no matter what species they are. Even enemy children? Especially enemy children, because they did not choose the war. Reth was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You are strange, human Hana, but I'm glad you came." Not everyone was glad. Hana began to notice that Commander Vexlar, the Kralthex officer in charge of the detention facility, watched her with cold eyes whenever she arrived. He never spoke to her directly, but she could feel his disapproval. One day, as she was leaving, a Kralthex guard stopped her. "The commander wants to see you." She followed the guard to an office. Commander Vexlar sat behind a metal desk. His uniform was covered in medals. His face was hard. "Sit," he ordered. Hana sat. "You have been visiting the enemy juveniles every day for 3 weeks." "Yes, Commander." "Why?" "They need care. They need someone to see them as people, not just prisoners." Vexlar's eyes narrowed. "They are prisoners of war. They are enemy assets. Your sentiment is a waste of time and resources. They are children. They are Kralthex. They are both." Vexlar stood up. He was much larger than Hana. He used his size to intimidate. "I am allowing your visits because the diplomatic agreement requires humanitarian access. But do not mistake my permission for approval. These juveniles will be processed according to military law. Your feelings are irrelevant." Hana stood as well. She was not tall, but she did not back down. "With respect, Commander, these cubs have rights under 3 interstellar treaties. They are entitled to education, proper nutrition, and contact with family members if possible." "You dare lecture me on military regulations? I dare remind you of the law." They stared at each other. Finally, Vexlar waved his hand. "Get out." Hana left. Her hands were shaking, but she kept them steady until she reached her quarters. Then she sat down and took several deep breaths. She had made an enemy today, but she had also made a point. The cubs had rights. She would not let anyone forget that. The next morning, she returned to the cells as usual. Kira ran to the bars as soon as she saw Hana approaching. "You came back!" "The guard said you would not come back." Hana knelt down and smiled at the small cub. "I will always come back, Kira, I promise." Behind Kira, the other cubs gathered near the bars. 46 faces looked at her with something new in their eyes. Not just gratitude, not just relief. Hope Hana realized in that moment that she had become more than a relief worker to these children. She had become their advocate, their protector, the one adult in this cold facility who saw them as people worthy of kindness. It was a responsibility she had not asked for. But it was one she would not abandon, no matter what Commander Vexlar said, no matter what it cost her. The weeks passed. Hana fell into a rhythm with the cubs. She arrived every morning at the same time. She brought food and medical supplies. She taught them simple games and songs. She helped them maintain some sense of normalcy in their imprisoned lives. The cubs changed. They smiled now. They laughed sometimes. The younger ones played games through the bars of their cells. The older ones asked Hana questions about the universe outside the station. They wanted to know about Earth, about human children, about what freedom felt like. Hana answered their questions as best she could. She also continued her reports to the humanitarian mission. Each report documented the conditions. Each report requested better treatment. Each report was met with diplomatic responses that meant nothing would change quickly, but small things did change. A Kralthex guard named Day Park began helping her. He was not like the other guards. He watched the cubs with thoughtful eyes instead of cold ones. One day he brought extra blankets without being asked. "Why?" Hana asked him quietly. Day Park looked uncomfortable. "They are cold at night. I can hear them shivering. They are just cubs. You could get in trouble for this." "I know." He met her eyes. "But you come here every day and risk the commander's anger. If a human can care about Kralthex cubs, then maybe a Kralthex can too." After that, Day Park became an ally. He warned Hana when Commander Vexlar was in a particularly bad mood. He looked the other way when she stayed past her authorized time. He even began learning the cubs' names. One morning in the 5th week, everything changed. Hana arrived at her usual time, but the atmosphere felt different. The guards were tense. Their weapons were displayed openly instead of holstered. Day Park met her at the entrance with worry in his eyes. "You should leave today," he said quietly. "What happened?" "Admiral Thorax is coming. He is inspecting the facility." "Why would that affect me?" Daypark looked at her like she was naive. The Admiral is known for harsh discipline. He believes in total military control. He does not approve of humanitarian interference. I have permission to be here. Permission can be revoked. Hana thought about this. Then she shook her head. The cubs expect me. I will not disappoint them. You are stubborn, human Hana. Yes, she went to the cells as usual. The cubs were more anxious than normal. They could sense the tension from the guards. Kira pressed herself against the bars and looked at Hana with wide eyes. Something is wrong, the small cub said. Everything will be fine, Hana lied. She did not want to frighten them more, but everything was not fine. That afternoon, Admiral Thorax arrived with his entourage. He was even larger than Commander Vexlar. His uniform held more medals. His presence filled the entire corridor when he inspected the cells. He looked at the cubs the way someone might look at equipment, objects to be counted and categorized. Hana was standing near the cells when he approached. His eyes landed on her and narrowed. Who is this? He demanded. Commander Vexlar stepped forward. A human relief worker. She has diplomatic authorization to visit the prisoners. Why? Humanitarian protocols, Admiral, Thorax snorted. Sentiment, weakness, he turned to Vexlar. How long until these juveniles can be transferred? Transferred, sir? To the military training colony on Krelth 5. They are old enough to begin labor service. We need workers to rebuild the damaged facilities on the border worlds. Hana felt her blood turn cold. Labor service. She knew what that meant. The cubs would be worked like adults. Dangerous jobs. Long hours. No education. No childhood. They would be used until they were old enough to be drafted into military service. Admiral, she said, stepping forward, those cubs cannot be transferred to a labor colony. Thorax looked at her with surprise, then with contempt. You dare address me directly, human? Those children are protected under the Sentient Rights Convention. They cannot be used for forced labor. They are prisoners of war. They are juveniles. They were non-combatants on a refugee transport. 3 separate treaties protect them. Commander Vexlar moved between them. Admiral, perhaps we should discuss this in private. No, Thorax said. His voice was sharp. This human needs to understand her place. You have no authority here. These prisoners are under Kralthek's military jurisdiction. They will be transferred in 3 days. You will not interfere. Hana felt anger rising in her chest, hot and powerful. She forced herself to speak calmly. I will file an official protest with the Interstellar Council. File whatever you want. It will take months to process. The cubs will be gone by then. Thorax turned his back on her. Commander Vexlar, remove this human from the facility. Her access is revoked immediately. Sir, immediately. 2 guards stepped toward Hana. She did not move. She looked past them at the cells. All 47 cubs were pressed against the bars, watching. Their faces were filled with fear and confusion. You cannot do this, Hana said to Thorax's back. This is wrong. Thorax turned slowly. His face was cold with rage. I do not take moral instruction from humans. Your species is weak. You value sentiment over strength. You protect the enemy's children while your own people die in war. That is why you will never be truly powerful in this galaxy. You care too much. Hana met his eyes directly. Yes, we care. That is not weakness. That is what makes us human. It makes you fools. Guards, escort her out. The guards took her arms, not roughly but firmly. They began walking her toward the exit. Hana did not struggle. She knew physical resistance was pointless. But she turned her head to look at the cubs one last time. Kira was crying, silent tears running down her small face. Reth stood with his hands gripping the energy bars, his jaw tight. The others watched with the same expression of betrayal that children wore when adults broke promises. I am sorry, Hana called to them. I am so sorry. They took her to her quarters. A guard stood outside her door. She was not officially imprisoned, but she was not free either. She immediately tried to contact the diplomatic mission, but the communication system was blocked. She sat on her bed and put her face in her hands. She had failed them. That night, she could not sleep. She paced her small room thinking. There had to be something she could do. Some way to stop the transfer. Some legal procedure or diplomatic channel or a soft knock on her door. She opened it. Daypark stood there. He glanced at the guard at the end of the corridor, then slipped inside quickly. You should not be here, Hana said. No, I should not. He pulled a small device from his pocket. This will give you access to external communications for approximately 10 minutes before security notices. Use it wisely. Why are you helping me? Daypark looked at her with tired eyes. Because you are right. What they are doing is wrong. I have cubs of my own back home. If they were captured, I would want someone like you fighting for them. He pressed the device into her hand. 10 minutes. Make them count. He left as quietly as he came. Hana activated the device and immediately sent messages to every contact she had. The diplomatic mission, humanitarian organizations, news services. She laid out the situation clearly. 47 cubs about to be sent to forced labor, a violation of interstellar law, an injustice that needed immediate attention. She sent the last message with 30 seconds to spare. Then she waited. The next morning, Commander Vexlar came to her quarters personally. His face was tight with barely controlled anger. You contacted external parties? Yes. You violated the communication restrictions? Yes. You have created a diplomatic incident. Good. Vexlar stared at her. Why human? Why do you care so much about enemy cubs? What do you gain? Hana stood up and looked him in the eye. I gain nothing. That is the point. This is not about gain. It is about what is right. Those children deserve protection. If no one else will give it to them, then I will. You are one person, one human. You cannot change anything. Maybe not. But I will not stop trying. Vexlar turned and left without another word. That afternoon, Admiral Thorax ordered her removed from the station entirely. She would be escorted to a transport ship in the morning. Her access to the cubs was permanently revoked. Hana lay in bed that night and thought about 47 small faces. She thought about Kira's tears, about Reth's brave facade, about all the others who had started to trust her. She had promised them she would always come back. She was about to break that promise. The morning came too quickly. Hana woke before dawn. She packed her few belongings slowly, trying to delay the inevitable. Her hands shook as she folded her clothes. She kept thinking about the cubs waking up and realizing she was gone. A guard knocked on her door at 600 hours station time. Not Daypark, a different guard with an expressionless face. It is time, he said. Hana picked up her bag. May I see the cubs one more time? To say goodbye? No. Admiral's orders. You are to be escorted directly to the docking bay. She had expected this, but it still hurt. They walked through the corridors. The station was quiet at this hour. Most personnel were still sleeping. Their footsteps echoed in the empty hallways. Each step felt heavy, final. Then the guard's communication device beeped. He stopped walking and listened to the message. His expression changed slightly. Surprise, maybe. Or concern. Change of route, he said. We are to pass through Corridor 7. Corridor 7. That was where the detention cells were located. Hana felt a small spark of hope. Maybe she would see them one last time after all. They turned down the familiar gray hallway. Ahead, she could see the heavy door to the cell block. It was open. Strange. It was never open at this hour. As they approached, Hana saw more guards, 6 of them, all armed, all standing at attention, and in front of them stood Commander Vexlar. His face was cold, angry, but something else too, something that looked almost like fear. Human Hana, he said formally. You are ordered to depart this station immediately. I understand, Commander. You will proceed to the docking bay without delay. Yes, Commander. You will not attempt to contact the prisoners. Hana said nothing. She started to walk past him. Stop. She stopped. Vexlar stepped closer. His voice dropped, so only she could hear. You should have stayed away from them. You should have followed protocols. You made them care about you. You made them hope. That was cruel, human. Now they will suffer more when you leave. I gave them kindness, Hana said quietly. That is never cruel. Kindness without power is meaningless. No, power without kindness is meaningless. Vexlar's jaw tightened. Proceed to the docking bay. Hana walked forward. The guards moved aside to let her pass. She could see into the cell block now. The cells were open. It was feeding time. The cubs were receiving their morning meal, and they saw her. Kira saw her first. The small cub dropped her food container. Her mouth opened in a small cry of surprise. Then she was running toward Hana with her small legs pumping as fast as they could. "Hana! Hana, you are still here!" The guard next to Hana moved to intercept the cub. Hana dropped her bag and knelt down, opening her arms. Kira crashed into her, wrapping tiny arms around her neck. The cub was crying and laughing at the same time. "I thought you left us," Kira sobbed. "I thought you were gone." "I am here," Hana whispered. She held the small cub tight. "I am here right now. Do not go. Please do not go." Hana could not speak. Her throat was too tight. She just held Kira and tried not to cry herself. "Release the cub," Commander Vexlar ordered. His voice was hard. "You are making this more difficult." Hana looked up at him. She was still kneeling, still holding Kira. "She is frightened. She is a prisoner. You are making her weak with your sentiment. I am reminding her that she is loved. She is not your cub to love. She is someone's cub. That is enough." Vexlar took a step forward. "I will not ask again. Release her and leave this station." Hana gently loosened Kira's arms. She looked into the small cub's eyes. "You need to be strong now, Kira. Can you do that for me?" Kira nodded, tears streaming down her face. "You are braver than you know. Remember that." Hana stood up slowly. Kira backed away a few steps but did not return to her cell. She just stood there, watching Hana with heartbroken eyes. Commander Vexlar gestured to the guards. "Escort her out. Immediately." The guards moved forward. They positioned themselves on either side of Hana, ready to take her arms if necessary. She picked up her bag. She took one last look at Kira, and then another cub emerged from the cells. Reth, the older male cub. He walked forward until he stood next to Kira. He did not say anything. He just stood there, looking at Commander Vexlar, looking at the guards. Then another cub came out, and another. One by one, the cubs emerged from their cells. They walked forward slowly. They formed a line behind Kira, behind Hana. Each one took their position without speaking, without being told. They simply chose where they wanted to stand. 47 cubs, all of them in a line, all of them facing Commander Vexlar and his armed guards. The corridor became very quiet. Commander Vexlar stared at the cubs. His expression was unreadable. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. No one had ordered this. No one had planned this. The cubs had decided on their own. Hana felt something break open in her chest. Not sadness. Something else. Something fierce and proud and overwhelming. "What is this?" Vexlar demanded. His voice was not as steady as before. Reth spoke. His voice was young but clear. "We stand with Hana. Return to your cells immediately." "No," the word hung in the air. Simple. Absolute. Vexlar's face darkened. "That is an order, prisoner." "We are not soldiers," Reth said. "We are cubs, and we choose to stand with the only adult who treated us with kindness." Behind Reth, the other cubs nodded. Some of them were trembling. The younger ones held hands with the older ones, but none of them moved. None of them returned to their cells. Commander Vexlar looked at Hana. "Order them back to their cells." Hana shook her head slowly. "I do not give children orders, Commander. I give them choices. This is their choice." "You are encouraging defiance. I am witnessing courage." Vexlar turned to his guards. "Move the cubs back to their cells. Use force if necessary." The guards did not move. They looked at the line of small bodies, at the cubs who were visibly shaking but still standing firm. One guard lowered his weapon slightly. Another took a step back. "That is an order," Vexlar shouted. Day Park stepped forward from among the guards. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. "Sir, they are just cubs. I cannot use force against cubs for the crime of standing near someone they trust." "You dare refuse an order?" I dare remember that I am a person first and a guard second. Another guard nodded. I agree with Day Park. Vexlar spun around. All of you will face court-martial for this. Perhaps, Day Park said, but we will not harm children. Not even for you, Commander. The corridor was silent except for the sound of quiet breathing. Hana stood very still, afraid that any movement might break whatever fragile thing was happening here. The cubs maintained their line. 47 small faces looking at Commander Vexlar with a mixture of fear and determination. Kira reached back and took Hana's hand. Her small fingers were cold, but they gripped tight. Hana squeezed back gently. This is mutiny, Vexlar said, but his voice had lost its power. He sounded almost lost. No, Hana said softly. This is children understanding justice better than adults. This is what happens when you treat living beings like objects. They remind you that they are people. You have poisoned them with your human weakness. I have shown them human strength. There is a difference. Vexlar looked at her for a long moment. Something in his eyes changed, not agreement, but perhaps a crack in his certainty. He turned to the guard who had been escorting Hana. Take her to holding cell 3, she is not leaving the station yet. Sir? I need to contact Admiral Thorax. This situation requires his direct attention. Vexlar looked at the cubs. All of you return to your cells, now. The cubs did not move. If you return to your cells, Hana will not be harmed. You have my word. Reth looked back at Hana. She nodded slightly. It was the best compromise they would get. Slowly, reluctantly, the cubs began to return to their cells, but they moved as a group. They stayed together, and they kept looking back at Hana. Kira was the last to let go of Hana's hand. You will come back? She whispered. I will try, Hana promised. She could not lie to the cub. I will try with everything I have. The guards took Hana away. As she walked down the corridor, she looked back one last time. 47 cubs stood at the bars of their cells, all of them watching her, all of them standing tall. They had been broken and scared when she first arrived. Now they stood like young warriors. Not because she had made them strong, but because they had discovered they were strong already. They just needed someone to believe in them first. The holding cell was small but clean. A bed, a sink, a toilet, nothing else. Hana sat on the bed and waited. Hours passed. No one came to tell her what was happening. She could only imagine the conversations taking place elsewhere on the station. She thought about the cubs standing behind her. That moment when they emerged from their cells one by one, no one had told them to do it. No one had organized them. They had simply looked at each other and known. Known that some things were worth standing up for, even when you were small and frightened. Especially when you were small and frightened. The door opened. A guard brought food and water. He set it down without speaking and left. Hana ate mechanically. The food had no taste. Her mind was elsewhere. Night came according to the station's light cycle. Hana lay down but did not sleep. She kept seeing Kira's face. The trust in those eyes. The hope. What would happen to that hope now? Morning came. Still no word. Then at midday the door opened again. This time it was not a guard. It was a human woman in diplomatic attire. She was older with sharp eyes and a professional bearing. I am Ambassador Yejin Song, the woman said. I represent the human diplomatic mission to this sector. Hana stood up quickly. Ambassador. The cubs. I know about the cubs. That is why I am here. Yejin gestured for Hana to sit. She sat beside her on the bed. You have created quite a situation, Hana Kim. I did not mean to. Yes, you did. You knew exactly what you were doing. Yejin's tone was not unkind. You made it impossible for them to quietly sweep this under diplomatic procedures. You made the cubs visible. That was deliberate. Hana met her eyes. They deserved to be seen. Yes, they did. Yejin pulled out a data pad. I need to understand exactly what happened this morning. The reports I am receiving from Kralthek's command do not match the reports from lower-level guards. Tell me your version. Hana told her everything. The confrontation. The cubs emerging from their cells. the line forming behind her. The guards refusing to use force. Commander Vexlar's reaction. Yejin listened without interrupting. When Hana finished, the ambassador was quiet for a long moment. The cubs were not ordered to stand behind you. No, they chose it themselves. And the guards refused a direct order? Yes, they said they would not harm children. Yejin looked at her data pad. This morning's incident was recorded by security cameras. The footage has already spread beyond this station. Human media networks have it. Kralthek's networks have it. By this evening, half the civilized galaxy will have seen 47 cubs standing behind one unarmed human relief worker. Hana felt something cold in her stomach. Is that bad? Bad? Yejin almost smiled. It is politically explosive. The image of those cubs choosing you over their own species' military command is powerful. It asks uncomfortable questions. It makes people think about what kind of society treats children as prisoners of war. Will it help them? I do not know yet. But it gives us leverage. Admiral Thorax cannot simply transfer them to a labor colony now. Too many people are watching. Too many questions are being asked. Hope flickered in Hana's chest. So they might be saved? Perhaps. If we move quickly and carefully, Yejin stood up. I need you to do something for me. I need you to make a statement. A formal explanation of why you came here, what you observed, and why you believe the cubs should be protected under interstellar law. Of course, anything. Good. I am arranging a hearing before the Interstellar Council's Committee on Sentient Rights. It will be broadcast. The Kralthek's government will send representatives. This will be public and official. When? 3 days from now. Until then, you will remain in this cell for your own protection. There are elements within the Kralthek's military who see you as a threat to their authority. I cannot guarantee your safety if you are allowed free movement on the station. Hana nodded. What about the cubs? Can I see them? Not yet, but I am working on that. Yejin moved toward the door, then paused. Hana, what you did this morning was either very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both. But you have given those cubs something more valuable than food or medicine. You have given them hope. Do not let them down now. I will do whatever it takes. I know you will. That is why I came personally instead of sending a junior diplomat. Yejin's expression softened slightly. You remind me why I joined diplomatic service. To help people who have no voice of their own. Thank you for reminding me of that. After she left, Hana felt lighter. There was a chance now. A real chance. The next 3 days passed slowly. Hana spent her time preparing her statement. She wrote down everything she had observed. The conditions in the cells, the fear in the cubs' eyes when she first arrived, the gradual trust that built between them. The moment they stood behind her, she wrote about Kira, about Reth, about each cub she had come to know. She made them real on the page. Not statistics, not prisoners, children with names and personalities and futures that deserved protection. On the second day, Day Park visited her cell. He brought fresh clothes and personal items. How are the cubs? Hana asked immediately, restless. They ask about you constantly. Kira refuses to eat unless someone tells her you are safe. Day Park set down the items. You have changed things here, human Hana. The guards talk about what happened. Some say you are trouble. Others say you are what conscience looks like. What do you say? I say you are both. He smiled slightly. The security footage has made you famous. Or infamous, depending on who you ask. My family saw it on the news networks. My cubs saw it. They asked me if I was one of the guards who protected you and the enemy cubs. What did you tell them? I told them yes. I told them I was proud to be one of those guards. Day Park's expression became serious. Whatever happens at the hearing, know that you have already changed minds. Not everyone's, but enough. Enough for what? Enough to matter. On the third day, Ambassador Yejin returned with a security escort. It is time. The hearing begins in 2 hours. We are transporting you to the council station. Hana gathered her few belongings. As they walked through the corridors, she saw other guards watching. Some with hostile expressions, others with something that might have been respect. They passed near the cell block but did not enter. Hana's heart ached. She wanted to see the cubs one more time before the hearing. As if reading her thoughts, Yejin said, After the hearing, if things go well, you will see them. I promise. The transport ship was fast. They docked at the Interstellar Council station within the hour. The station was massive, designed to host representatives from hundreds of species. Hana had never been anywhere so grand. They led her to a preparation room. A human lawyer named Bo Choi was waiting there. He was young, but his eyes were sharp and focused. Hana Kim, I will be presenting your case to the committee. He shook her hand firmly. I have reviewed your statement. It is powerful, but you need to understand what you are walking into. The Kralthex government is sending their best legal minds. They will argue that military necessity supersedes humanitarian concerns. They will say the Cubs are assets in wartime. They will say you are interfering with legitimate military operations. What do I say to that? You tell the truth. You describe what you saw. You make the committee see those Cubs as people, not as assets. Can you do that? Yes. Good. Because the decision made today will set precedent for how juvenile prisoners are treated across the entire galaxy. No pressure. Bo Choi smiled slightly to take the edge off his words. They entered the hearing chamber. It was enormous. A semicircular room with the committee seated on a raised platform. Representatives from 12 different species, all wearing formal robes. Below them, 2 tables. One for the human delegation, one for the Kralthex delegation. Commander Vexlar was there, so was Admiral Thorax. They sat with 3 Kralthex lawyers, all wearing military decorations. And in the gallery behind the tables, hundreds of observers, diplomats, journalists, representatives from humanitarian organizations. The seats were full. Every eye turned to watch Hana enter. She felt very small suddenly, very human, very alone. Then she saw a screen on the wall. It was showing the security footage from that morning 3 days ago. The moment when the Cubs emerged from their cells. The moment they formed a line behind her. The image was frozen on Kira's face, looking up at Hana with absolute trust. Hana took a deep breath. She was not alone. 47 Cubs were counting on her. She sat down at the table next to Bo Choi and Ambassador Yejin, the committee chair. A tall being from a species Hana did not recognize, struck a ceremonial chime. This hearing is now in session. We will hear the matter of humanitarian treatment of juvenile prisoners in military detention. The human diplomatic mission has brought charges that the Kralthex Empire has violated interstellar law. Let us begin. Hana's hands were shaking. But when she looked at that frozen image of Kira on the screen, her hands became steady. She had a story to tell, and the galaxy was finally listening. The Kralthex lawyers spoke first. They were precise and cold. They cited military regulations. They referenced historical precedents. They argued that the Cubs were captured during legitimate military operations and therefore subject to military jurisdiction. These juveniles, the lead lawyer said, were aboard a vessel that violated restricted space during wartime. Their parents were enemy combatants. The Cubs themselves represent future security threats. Placing them in protective custody until the war ends is both legal and necessary. The committee members listened. Some took notes. Others watched with unreadable expressions. Then it was Bo Choi's turn. He stood and approached the committee platform. The Kralthex delegation speaks of military necessity, of security, of legal precedent, but they avoid the central question. He paused. Are these Cubs people, or are they property? The Kralthex lawyers objected immediately. No one is suggesting they are property. Then why are they being treated as assets? Why are they being transferred to a labor colony? Why are they denied education, adequate medical care, and contact with surviving family members? Bo Choi gestured to the screen showing the frozen image of the Cubs. These are not enemy soldiers. These are children who were on a refugee transport. Children whose only crime was being born during wartime. He spoke for 20 minutes. He cited the 3 treaties that protected juvenile prisoners. He described the conditions in the detention facility. He presented medical reports showing malnutrition and psychological trauma. And then he called Hana to testify. She walked to the witness stand on unsteady legs. Someone administered the oath. She swore to tell the truth. Then she sat down and faced the committee. Bo Choi asked her to describe what she observed during her time at the detention facility. Hana spoke. She described the first day when the Cubs pressed themselves against the walls in terror. She described their gradual trust. She talked about Kira, who was barely more than a baby. About Reth, who tried to be brave for the younger ones. About all 47 Cubs who simply wanted what every child wants. Safety, kindness, hope. The committee listened, Then the Kralthex lawyers questioned her. They tried to make her seem emotional, naive, unqualified to judge military operations. "You are a relief worker," one lawyer said. "You have no military training. How can you determine what is necessary for security?" "I do not need military training to recognize cruelty," Hannah replied. "You believe providing food and shelter is cruel? I believe treating children like prisoners of war is cruel. I believe denying them education and contact with family is cruel. I believe planning to send them to a labor colony is cruel." Hannah's voice was steady. "I do not need training to see that. You allowed your emotions to interfere with protocol. No. I allowed my conscience to guide my actions. There is a difference." Admiral Thorex stood up suddenly. "May I address the committee?" The chair nodded. "Proceed, Admiral." Thorex approached the platform. He was imposing even in this massive chamber. This entire hearing is based on sentiment, on emotion. The human relief worker admits she acted on feelings rather than regulations. She admits she formed attachments to enemy juveniles. She admits she encouraged defiance of military authority. He turned to look at Hannah. Humans believe their capacity for emotion makes them superior. They believe caring about everyone makes them moral. But this is weakness. In war, sentiment gets people killed. Protecting enemy juveniles today means facing enemy soldiers tomorrow. "So you admit," Bo Choi said, "that you see these cubs as future enemies, not as children. I see them as reality. They are Kralthex. We are at war with the Kralthex Empire. Therefore they are enemy assets." "Assets," Bo Choi repeated. "Not people. They are both. That is war." The committee chair raised a hand. "Admiral Thorex, you ordered these juveniles transferred to a labor colony. What would their conditions be there?" "They would work in reconstruction efforts. They would be fed, sheltered, and supervised. For how long? Until they reach military age. Then they would be conscripted into service. So they would never receive education, never be reunited with family." Thorex's jaw tightened. "Correct. And this is your definition of humane treatment?" "It is my definition of military necessity." The chamber was silent. Then Ambassador Yejin stood. "May I present additional evidence?" The chair nodded. Yejin activated a display. Images appeared on the screens around the chamber. "These are the families of the 47 cubs. We located them through refugee databases. 32 cubs have at least one surviving parent. 8 have both parents alive. The remaining 7 have extended family members searching for them. More images. Parents holding pictures of their cubs. Families living in refugee camps waiting for news. The Kralthex government claims these cubs are enemy assets. But these families are not combatants. They are civilians, refugees, people who lost everything in this war and now search desperately for their children." Yejin's voice was passionate. "How can we claim to be civilized species if we do not reunite these families?" The Kralthex lawyers conferred quietly. Then their leader stood. "The emotional appeal is noted, but the legal reality remains. These juveniles were captured in restricted space. Until the war ends, they cannot be released." "Then end the war," Hannah said. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood up at the witness stand, her heart pounding. "End the war," she repeated. "If the only thing preventing these children from being reunited with their families is the war, then end it. Make peace. Stop fighting." Because continuing a war that harms children is not strength. It is choosing cruelty. "You think it is that simple?" Admiral Thorex demanded. "You think we can just stop fighting because you feel sad about some cubs?" "No. I think you can stop fighting because it is the right thing to do. I think you can choose peace because peace is always better than war. I think you can reunite these families because you are capable of being better than this." Hannah's voice grew stronger. "I am just one human, one person. I cannot end your war, but I can stand here and tell you that those cubs deserve better. They deserve to be children. They deserve to have families. They deserve to live in a galaxy that protects them instead of using them." She looked at Commander Vexlar. He was watching her with an expression she could not read. "When those cubs stood behind me, they were not choosing humans over Kralthex. They were choosing kindness over cruelty. They were choosing the adult who treated them with dignity. That should shame everyone in this room who had the power to help them and chose not to." The chamber was silent. Then Commander Vexlar stood up. The Kralthex lawyers looked at him in surprise. Admiral Thorex tried to pull him back down, but Vexlar shook him off and approached the committee. "I wish to speak." The chair looked uncertain. Commander Vexlar, you are not. I am the officer in charge of the detention facility. I watch those cubs every day. I saw what the human did. Vexlar's voice was rough. She is right. I treated them as prisoners because it was easier than seeing them as people. I followed regulations because it meant I did not have to think about what I was doing. He turned to face the gallery. I watched security footage of that morning. I watched the cubs emerge from their cells. No one ordered them. No one forced them. They chose. And they chose the person who showed them kindness. Vexlar looked at Admiral Thorax. You asked why humans are different. This is why. They see people. We see assets. They offer compassion. We offer duty. And when those cubs had to choose, they chose compassion. That should tell us something about who we have become. Admiral Thorax's face darkened with rage. You are out of line, Commander. Yes, sir. I am. Vexlar removed his military insignia and placed it on the table. I resign my commission. I will not be part of a system that treats children as enemy assets. The chamber erupted in noise. Journalists shouting questions. Diplomats conferring urgently. The committee members banging for order. When the noise finally settled, the committee chair spoke. This committee will recess for deliberation. We will reconvene in 2 hours with our decision. Hana sat down. Her legs felt weak. Bo Choi squeezed her shoulder. You did well. Did I do enough? We will know soon. The 2 hours felt like days. Hana sat in the preparation room with Ambassador Yejin and Bo Choi. No one spoke much. They were all thinking about 47 cubs waiting in detention cells, unaware that their futures were being decided. Finally, they were called back to the chamber. The committee chair stood. This committee has reached a decision. In the matter of humanitarian treatment of juvenile prisoners, we find the following. She looked directly at the Kralthex delegation. The detention and planned transfer of the 47 Kralthex juveniles constitutes a violation of the Sentient Rights Convention. These cubs are to be immediately released to the custody of the Interstellar Refugee Agency. Efforts will be made to reunite them with surviving family members. Those without family will be placed with approved foster families of their own species. Hana felt tears on her face. She had not realized she was crying. The chair continued. Furthermore, this committee recommends immediate ceasefire negotiations between the human and Kralthex governments. This war has continued too long and harmed too many. It is time for peace. Admiral Thorax stood up angrily. The Kralthex Empire does not recognize this committee's authority over military operations.